And we take a breath now and we'll move on to our next speakers. Now, I would say it's a double act. We have two people who are going to be working together, and they're going to be doing conversations around race, racism, and unconscious bias. And these are words that are being used a lot at the moment. And this is moving, and this is what I like this, especially moving from rhetoric to changing ourselves, our environment, and our practice. And I'm so pleased. I've got two fantastic people with me this morning. And the first, Benash and Illiyin. Benash Nazmeen is a specialist cultural liaison midwife working towards addressing health inequalities as highlighted by Embrace within maternity services. And she has co-designed and runs cultural competency and safety workshops for maternity healthcare professionals while working closely with the diverse community. So keeping the two links together. And she co-founded the Association of South Asian Midwives, and that's ASMAM, aiming to increase awareness of South Asian communities and their concerns with maternity healthcare professionals. And that's working closely to highlight and support the South Asian workforce and working with the communities, tackling taboo subjects like loss, mental health, infertility, etc. And also working together is Illiyin Morrison, who is the founder. She's a midwife and the founder of Mixing Up Motherhood and Cultural Competence and Advocacy Workshop Facilitator. She qualified 3.5 years ago, probably longer now, I think, and has worked in a busy South London unit since. This is another juggler. This is what I always love about our speakers. They're always busy people who are juggling their lives and juggling to be able to be with us. Illiyin has a passion for fighting against injustice in the childbirth continuum, with a particular emphasis on tackling systemic racism and bias in healthcare. Her monthly masterclass is aimed specifically at birth workers regarding advocacy and how it can change the care that is received, particularly by Black and brown women and birthing people. So welcome, Illiyin and Benash. I always say now, the screen is yours. Thank you so much for coming, and I'm going to enjoy and find this challenging, I know.
Thank you for the lovely welcome. I feel like we've been introduced almost like the Chuckle Sisters, but not quite, I think.
I think it's going to be a bit of an act, a bit of a to me, to you, to me, to you.
We've got this, it's fine. And because we're good. So thank you so much. I will give a heads up and a warning to everybody. We're going to be going from presentation to a few clips. So just bear in mind with us and just smile and nod patiently while we do the little tricks and swaps. But welcome, everybody. So me and Illiyin are welcoming you to join us to create a space where we can have some difficult conversations and some conversations that are going to make emotions, should we say, well, are going to challenge are going to bring some challenging emotions to the forefront. Right, Illiyin?
Yes. I think that this type of topic can definitely be a cause for reflection, but also something that can make people feel quite uncomfortable. There are no personal attacks in this. It is not going for you as a practitioner or as an individual. It's a point of reflection for everybody and looking at how we can change the experiences of women and birthing people from all ethnicities, but particularly highlighting the injustices that are faced by Black and brown birthing people. So, you know, it's just, I want everyone to come away, we want everyone to come away from this feeling like, okay, I'm going to check myself and reflect on my practice and actually where I can change things. So yeah, there's nothing personal here.
So absolutely, we just want everyone to take this time to sit with what comes up and to contemplate why that's coming up, because like Illiyin said, that reflection is so important, and it's important in everything we do. And we're encouraged to do this from our days as student midwives and through our journey in midwifery. So let's continue. And if defense mechanisms are kicking in and other emotions are coming up, then maybe contemplate why and how we can start addressing and working towards addressing those as well. So the big question is, I'm going to ask you, Illiyin.
Okay.
Why is this happening, my love? Why are we here?
The thing is, I think, as Maria pointed out, but as we know, and it's been in the media a lot, the disparities between maternal mortality in Black and brown people and people of mixed heritage compared to their white counterparts is something that is very important. Like, it's something that we need to be speaking about more regularly, but not only speaking about it, but actually wondering how we can make changes and progress. So we've done a lot of speaking, and we've done a lot of, theatrics. Oh, here's the headline and this and that and the other. But are we actually doing anything to make substantial changes, systemic changes? And I think it's massive. The issue is a systemic issue, but it does start from within. Those small changes, those changes that we can make as people, will make a big difference to the system that we're working in. And so it is important that we are here to highlight those statistics, but also what contributes to them and the effect that change could possibly have, and will definitely have, hopefully.
Yeah, and I think that the reaction historically has been, this is the data, and the data on this disproportion is absolutely quite gobsmacking and terrifying. And do you know what? It's a really big topic. So it's sometimes easier to almost be like, well, excuse A, B, C, and D, socioeconomic deprivation, comorbidities, etc., hard to reach communities. That one I absolutely detest with a passion, because actually they are easy to ignore is more the standard, because the reality is these ladies are attending appointments. They're sat in front of you, they are coming to your appointment, and in that time we have got absolutely that conversation can be had, that building of relationships and bond can be had there. And I think that the enormity of it can be quite almost scary. So the ability to look away sometimes has been easier. But if you think about it as a small changes, because like you said, Illiyin, it is that small thing that you can do. Like for me, one big thing anyone can do and makes my heart warm up and makes me instantly bond towards someone is when they say my name, Benash, because my name is my identity. It was actually given by my grandmother, who was the village midwife in Kashmir, and it links me to my heritage and my family. It has a meaning, and in my culture we believe a name influences a person's character and personality. So just asking me, how do I pronounce your name? Benash makes me so much happier. And Illiyin, I know you've got a similar experience with your name as well.
Yeah, I have spent my professional career, so I guess spanning from student, so approximately like 10 years, I guess, with lots of different interactions with people saying, oh, can we shorten your name? Can we just call you Illiyin? And actually, I said yes. To avoid those conversations and to avoid the kind of correcting people. I had a name badge that said Illiyin. It's only in the last 18 months, I think, where I've just gone, do you know what, sod this. I'll be Illy if I want to be, but actually my name is Illiyin. And when people take the time to get that right, it's like, actually, yeah, we can talk. And so when we're dealing with women and birthing people, and it's so important that you start the precedent of your relationship with them by getting their name right, asking them their names. Don't make assumptions. Don't ask to shorten it. Don't say it's strange. I've had a lot of people, that's a strange name. It's not strange, it's just that you can't pronounce it. But you could also ask me. It's like Benash is saying, it's so important, and it starts there. That introduction, that first relationship is really important with how we make women and birthing people feel.
Because we've said it's all about listening, and we've had this conversation. Maria's just given an example of, how do we ensure that we are listening and we are showing we are listening? The question that was asked by Sue, we are showing we are listening by telling the people we are caring for what we are doing to respond to what we have heard. and to first and foremost say, we have heard your name being said this way, but let me confirm with you that this is the correct way. Because, you know, other people, the receptionist might have said, you know, Kadja has arrived, and you're like, hi Kadja, it's your turn to come to be seen into triage. And Kadja has never heard her name be pronounced that way, and is sitting in triage thinking, I will wait until Khadija has been called. It's getting a bit late. 3 people have gone ahead of me. What's going on? And her care has already been delayed. Bearing in mind, Khadija's might be from a culture where you ask your mum first, or your mother-in-law, or your sister, I've got this problem, you know, this is going wrong with me, and she's already been triaged by her family members and her friends and extended family, maybe a partner, before she's picked up the phone to call us as a maternity service. So her care's already been delayed, and we know that that can be a factor. It's like ladies that are coming for cervical screening are presenting later when there's an actual reason, rather than having regular screening, and therefore are further down the spectrum and needing more advanced care. So it is one of those things where we need to be conscious these communities are potentially coming after a delay already to us, and how can we prevent that delay? I think we've had a little bit of a general conversation between ourselves, but let's see and share an experience from someone who who has spoken about this in a bit more detail. And this is where I switch between screens, so bear with me.
Very scary when I found out I was pregnant with Levi, because I was only 20. So I had like my big birth plan where I was having a water birth and everything was going to be so beautiful. Then someone came and then I remember saying to her, I'm going to have my water birth, right? And she was like, no, we don't have time for that. And I was like, what? She was like, no, we have to just get the baby born now, the baby's coming, we don't have any time. So we get into a room, there's a midwife, she comes up to me and she says to me, you're screaming. I was like, it hurts. Like, I don't know what else you want me to do. I just wanted to go. Nobody I've actually come into contact with since I've been here has been nice. I just want to go home.
One of the problems we've identified in our reports is that a lot of symptoms are dismissed as due to pregnancy, when actually they're quite concerning symptoms.
I'm just going to stop that there because that's a long...
It's a long
one.
I think, you know, looking at that, and I want it, you know, maybe this is, everyone else has seen it like that, and seen those same things. If you've read the Embrace report, there's lots of reasons for the maternal disparities, such as not accessing care, such as not, what was the other one? Socioeconomic status, you know, different things, maternal comorbidities and things like that. But if you listen to what this woman was saying, and I, you know, speak up, you need to speak up, women not voicing, not speaking up. And actually that's one of my biggest bugbears when it comes to this whole conversation, is that we've taken the onus off the professionals and put it onto the women, especially Black and brown women who are speaking up and who have been speaking up. They've never stopped speaking up. The issue isn't whether they speak up. The issue is what happens when they do speak up. So we say you need to go to the antenatal classes, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do the other, you need to advocate for yourself and things like that. But actually, like in that video, she said, I had the birth plan, I knew what would work for me, I did all of this and I voiced it. And what happened when she voiced it? No, this, you know, the reason why that can't happen is this, that, and the other, just no. And then when she's expressing her pain, she's shut down. And that's not how you express pain. And we know that there's an assumption that Black women feel less pain, Black people feel less pain. I've never heard anything more ridiculous, because race is a social construct with no biological bearing. which means that if a white person feels pain, a black person feels pain, and a brown person feels pain, and each one of those experiences or expressions of that experience should be treated the same. So if you shout because you're in pain, it's okay. It is okay to express your pain. But if you are shut down and told, no, that's not how you express pain, you aren't allowed to express pain like that. When we look at why Black and brown people aren't seeking help and support from maternity services, we have to check ourselves first. What happens when we go to seek help? Are we listened to? Are we heard? Are we supported? Are we encouraged? Are we understood? All of those questions need to be coming into, what are we doing with the information that we are being given by these women who are expressing themselves? Is it culturally sensitive and culturally competent care? Because if that happened, then we wouldn't come away feeling like, well, actually, I was saying this, but they weren't doing what they were supposed to. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, we're now at a stage where we're saying, well, these ladies aren't giving us feedback. These families, these pregnant people aren't reaching out to us anymore. Why is that? Because we need to look back on our history, and we actually need to be taught about the history. We know, historically speaking, there have been trials and studies done on our communities that have failed or even detrimentally caused them harm. And that has been very well documented to the point where all you need to do is Google the Tuskegee trial. You need to look at the history behind Jane Marion Sims's speculum. You need to look into how cesarean sections were once upon a time performed without analgesia on enslaved women in plantation fields in America. These are historically the constructs that has come down through history. And these are the lessons and the intergenerational trauma that has been passed down. And the expectation is very little now. I know from my community, which has been completely erased, in history, it's very difficult to even find the kind of ancestry and what's been done in past in the South Asian continent before partition happened, because it's not been documented as effectively. And where it was documented, it has been erased. For example, there's a famous movie, I forget what it's called, but it's about Abdul, the Queen's, Victoria's one of his favorite slaves, and they only found out about him incidentally, because his son didn't like the bond that the Queen had with him and didn't want that to be public knowledge, therefore destroyed anything, and what was left to him from the Queen was also not given to his family. And that erasure is what is affecting us even now to this day, because the expectation isn't there. So the complaining to pals isn't there, and the complaining to you as a healthcare professional is being cut down because we're not feeling listened to. But I can tell you, people are coming to complain to me because they know I'm a South Asian midwife, and they think I'm listening and I'm understanding and I'm culturally aware. And the data that keeps coming up is actually scaring the communities, because they are seeing that we are talking about this, and they are seeing it on the social media, and they're seeing it tweeted and Instagrammed, but they're not seeing what we are doing about it. And the conversation around speak up is almost like, but we are speaking up. Antenatal classes, where are they in my language? Where are the classes that I can speak, that I can understand better? Where are the cultural practices that I want to talk about? Where can I go to have that cultural safe conversation without feeling like I'm going to be judged about asking about my religious or cultural practice that I want to do because this is what we've done, and from generations before? Where is a safe and brave space where I can go and feel like I don't have to validate and explain myself over and over again, and make it and listen to, defensive practice where I can just be accepted and just listen to what I'm saying without having that rhetoric that can come back from it. Those are the conversations that are almost being heard within the community that I'm within, Illiyin.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think personally, as a Black woman who's been through the service and been treated terribly, and who has also worked in the service, I can see where these conversations, where the issues are, but also where we're not having those conversations and where we're not encouraged to complain, but also because we've got to think of how our pain is understood and how our pain is viewed and how our experiences are viewed. And like Benash said before, when we speak about what we don't understand, a lot of, midwives don't understand cultural family dynamics. And it's so important that we start to look at these and examine them and understand that through generations of traumatic birthing experiences and traumatic pregnancy experiences, these things have been normalized. And so our families are taught, well, that happened to me as well, but don't worry, it's fine. The mum saying it's fine, the grandma saying it's fine. And when I had my babies, and you're so fortunate now that even you had choices, those influences are really important. When we say to someone, you should complain, what should I complain about? Because I don't know what I deserve. I don't know what kind of care I am worthy of. Do I have the right to complain? Because in my community, this is normalized. Mm-hmm. This trauma has been normalized. And this is where we need to be doing the work in those communities and breaking down those beliefs that Black and brown people are less deserving of the care that their white counterparts receive. And that is how we can make those changes to get true data. Because we're not getting true data from Black and brown women who were just told, be quiet because actually you're okay. You've got a healthy baby, you're alive, you're okay. The data isn't changing as we go on because those women are still not speaking up. One, because their experiences weren't understood, but two, because actually they're not encouraged to speak up. And it's not safe for them to speak up.
And this is so 2 points here with the data. Even when the data is managing to get those, the feedback and the conversation with people from the Black and brown communities, the analysts are white British, so they potentially are missing out on significant nuances that are culturally important and sensitive and rich data, which they may not even be aware of because their lens is different.
Yeah.
And so it's so important that in research, we are funding more people and we are supporting more people in the workforce from our diverse communities to be participating, to be involved in, and to be elevating them to be able to have those conversations. And the second thing was the data has been around for a very, very long time. It's still, we're now 2020, and massive uproar that has happened after last year, COVID and BLM and all of these things have taken this lens that we currently are in, the spotlight we have, is because of that, not because the data happened, the data wasn't there, the data has already been there, but the data was found incidentally. And again, that word incidental, it's an incidental finding because we are not a priority. We haven't been a priority for a very, very long time. And the conversations I've had with some people is, we have a very small Black, brown, diverse ethnic community in our local trust, so we don't need to invest in continuity of care or X, Y, and Z. And the conversation there is, well, that's where you need it even more, because that's where biases and issues are being faced on a larger scale by those communities that are now being minoritized and marginalized even more, because that comment you've just made says that you do not prioritize them.
Yeah, so looking at this graph that you've got here, you can see the maternal mortality rates by ethnic group, and this is 2000 to 2002. You can see that the disparity was very clear then. When we look at the Embrace report from 2018, in fact, maternal mortality rates have increased. It's gone from three times more to 5 times more in Black women. And you think, well, okay, so we're advancing medically. Midwifery is changing. The care that we're providing is changing. Medicine is changing. We're supposedly more culturally aware. We are supposedly creating safer spaces, safer practices. And yet, this data that everyone loves to talk about is showing that Black women are still dying disproportionately and Asian women are still dying disproportionately. And why is that happening? So then we've got to be really frank about it. And this is what we're scared of. You know, that harsh reality that actually racism is playing a massive part in what is killing these women. And these are statistics that we've got on maternal mortality. But do we really have statistics on maternal morbidity? Do we really have statistics on the near misses? Do we really have statistics on the experiences of Black and brown people? Because if we were to get those, then everyone would be really shocked. If it was more than anecdotal, we'd be really, really shocked. But like Benash is saying, we need to be in those interviews, and that data needs to be collected by people who are understanding what is being said. And so that's not me saying only Black people can interview Black people, only brown people can interview brown people. But what I'm saying is we need to be culturally competent and culturally safe, and so that we can understand. And if we don't understand, we ask, we don't assume, because then we could get a true picture on what maternal care looks like and the changes that we need to make in order to really get rid of racism and improve experiences for these Black, brown and mixed heritage women.
Nail, head. Like, what more can I say there? Because that is the reality, and the reality is the conversations and the lessons that have been learnt are not necessarily the lessons we need to be learning in university. You know, the Eurocentric lens that is currently on the curriculum needs to be removed, and the conversations that, I mean, I've had really upset women that keep coming back to me and talking to me about how, you know, every single appointment I'm being asked this one question over and over again, but I'm only being asked because I'm from this community. And I'm not going to name certain communities because that's just adding to the biases. But, you know, I'm being asked this question about FGM. And I know, and I do not want to put my daughter through that, and I would never do that. But this threat of safeguarding keeps being pushed in my face. But I know for a fact my friend who is XYZ hasn't been asked that question once, but I've been asked it in every single consultation. And you know, the question about consanguinity, I've had an ultrasound sonographer say to me, the amount of upset women that go to her because they recognise her from being in the same culture as her, that say, do you know what? When they first noticed an abnormality, the first question they asked was consanguinity. Am I related to my partner? No, I am not. It's documented clearly, but that is the same thing that everyone keeps asking me, from the sonographer to the doctor to the neonatologists. And those are the things that are adding to those barriers. And those barriers then often becomes internalized. And we have this conversation with ourselves where we aren't even talking about certain things within our own community, sadly, because of those lessons we've internalized from the other side. And I think there's a young man who has a few questions.
Can you see? I can't see.
Who we're just going to play. And this is the tech issues again.
I have a question. Why is my name so hard to pronounce? Why is it when it comes to my cultural history, everyone has so much doubt? I have a question. Why are we sold products that attack our beautiful skin complexions? I have a question. Why don't we know the depth of our ancestry? I have a question. Why don't we talk about our mental health and self-reflection? I have a question. How much did Beji and Baba give up to make it here? I have a question. How much did we as a community sweep under the carpet? How many much needed conversations were never made out of fear?
So those are things that we definitely, I think, in both communities, Black and brown communities, there's lots of things. So it's not saying, oh, it's just the fault of white people, and they've made everything so hard for everyone, and it's a communal, it's a collective thing that we can all make changes. But it's like, it goes back to what I was saying about changing those narratives primarily, and also, when we're interacting with Black and brown communities, ensuring that they feel that actually they can speak about what their understanding is and what their belief is and what they've been taught. And we can change those conversations, and we can make sure that they're understanding, well, actually, yeah, I recognize that's what your beliefs are, and I respect that. And you can have a conversation. It's a two-way thing. It's what happens a lot of the time is when these people come in, and like Benash was saying, they come to appointments and they say, oh yeah, this. And it's ridiculed. And it's, yeah, right, okay, sure, or yeah, maybe that's from where you're from. It's like that, that othering thing of, yeah, that's what you do there. And, it's documented, and it's all of these things. And it's like, well, let's listen, let's hear, and let's make changes. One thing that I think is really important that we speak about is this not accessing care, not seeking help. And I say it in my own masterclasses that there are very, very few pregnant people who do not want to access help. I mean, making the implying that these people don't want help is actually insulting. It's what we need to be asking is, okay, what shapes that? Where are you getting your information from? What are your experiences? What is your understanding? Do you know what you're entitled to? So, this slide here is speaking about the media and what messages are put out to us and what we can see, what is in any type of midwifery papers, what's the published work looking like, what is when posters are put up in doctors' surgeries or in hospitals, what do they look like? Can we see ourselves? Are you speaking to us and about us? So a lot of this stuff is like, well, yes, we're accessing services, but services aren't made for us.
Mm-hmm. And that is just the conversation. And that is, we're accessing services and we're going to practitioners that aren't trained how to identify mental health concerns in my community. And this is a classic example and a conversation I keep having with my brown psychologist friends who are doing work in these communities and that keep saying, look, a prime example for me, in Urdu, there isn't a word for depression. So in a language, there isn't even a word for this mental health concern that we know massively impacts individuals and impacts on life expectancy as well. We know how large mental health can largely affect your years in poor health and your life expectancy. But we are not talking about how they will present to us. We are not learning about what they are going to present to us with, because in my community, we're more likely to talk about the psychosomatic symptoms of it. Therefore, you already know how far down that spectrum of mental health we are. If we're talking about palpitations, if we're talking about stress-induced headaches, because that's what we're coming to practitioners and clinicians with. We're saying we've got headaches. And what we're doing as clinicians, because we're trained to be clinically, clinically checking, we're checking your blood pressure and your urine, and we'd want to diagnose you or rule out a diagnosis of a actual health problem or a comorbidity, but we are not looking at, well, how often are you having these headaches? Are they, are you sleeping enough? Are you, does it settle with pain relief? What is bringing them on? Are you eating well? Are you going out? Are you exercising? Because if you were to ask someone in my family, because we're first generation immigrants, and I'll go with the elder generation in my family, if you were to ask my mum, are you feeling low? Her translation to that would be, what do you mean, low on the ground, on the floor? Or are you talking about class? Are you talking about, am I lower than you in class? What do you mean by low? That conversation and the PHQ-9 is not appropriate. And then we're missing things. And even like this whole conversation that Sarah Wickham has highlighted about anti-D. My mum is B negative, and in Pakistan, when she had her blood test, she was given a card to say, your blood group is really rare. You need to carry this card with you. But that's not the case in the UK. But in Pakistan, it was very largely that your blood group is extremely rare, and it quite clearly says how rare it is in Asian countries and African Caribbean countries in comparison to European countries. But again, I wasn't aware of this until I saw this. And it's almost like I've had to go and do learning for myself outside of my curriculum that trained me and in my journey as a midwife.
Yeah, I think, when I go back to when I was training as a midwife, I would say it wasn't culturally safe, not intentionally. I think the curriculum was just not there. It's not there. There weren't people coming to speak about racism in healthcare and weathering, and the effects of poor healthcare and not creating. There were lots of talks about how these people in these communities don't access care. That's where it was. And again, we've got to think about the language that's being used and where the onus is being put, rather than on that self-reflection. And like Benash was saying, the questions, the FGM and the domestic violence and the single parenting and those types of things. I mean, personally, when I went to an appointment and they said to me, where's dad? And I said, oh, he's not here. And they documented on the paperwork that I was a single parent. I didn't tell you I was a single parent. But also, what are the implications of you documenting that in your systems? And how does that make me feel? And the assumptions that you've made and the stereotypes that go with single parenting, and the fact that I've got a child that is unwell and I'm now documented as a single parent through one conversation where you didn't ask any more questions but made an assumption. Mm-hmm. And where did that assumption come from? It came from your own biases. Yeah. And that's what we need to be asking. What are our biases? When we see young Black women, or young women generally, but particularly in this conversation, young Black women that present by themselves to appointments, dad's not there. That's it. They may say he's just not here. And what is our immediate assumption? Mm-hmm. Is he in jail? Probably. Or was dad's not around, absentee father? Because the media is pushing this stereotype on Black men being absentee fathers, which actually statistically is incorrect. But all of our stereotypes and all of our biases are influencing the care that we give and how these women perceive this care. Because I'll tell you right now, they are not stupid. They may not speak the same language, they may not come from the same place, but we are not stupid. And we see the looks and we see the documentation and we see all of this and this thing that's like, oh, I'd better make sure that I say the right thing. I better make sure that I'm palatable enough. I better not say that I don't know, I had a cigarette at the beginning of my pregnancy before I knew. I better not say that I tried recreational drugs, because the fear of safeguarding and the fear of judgment that these women are facing. I better not say that I'm from a Muslim community, because actually, I might be oppressed, or maybe I wasn't allowed to come to the appointment, or maybe my husband will speak for me. I attended a study day on bereavement, and the facilitator said, be careful of Asian men. They often won't let their wives speak. Be careful of Muslim men even. They won't let the wives speak, and they won't let the wives grieve. They'll dictate to them how to do it. So just wait till the partner's out the room. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, the racism and the effect that it is having, that we aren't even allowed to grieve in a way that is our own. That if it isn't palatable to you, if it's not recognized by you as being okay, as crying and as showing a softness and a gentleness and all of these things that are associated with this whiteness, then it's not okay. Mm-hmm. And what is being documented? Yeah. And what does that mean for any future interaction with healthcare professionals, for both you and your husband and partner? What does it mean? And what are the effects of these things? It snowballs, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And you're thinking, well, hold on. You know, we have to think of the effect that our own internalized racism, our own bias, and as Black and brown practitioners as well, we carry that with us. What is the effect on these people's experiences and their lives?
And for those people who are thinking that, you know, yes, there's comorbidities, there's X, Y, Z, there's socioeconomic deprivation. Remember, when Embrace has done their studies, they've counted and they've stabilized, that they've looked at all these factors. And despite that, these disparities exist. And if you're going to say, I'm not racist, or I'm not biased, or I don't have unconscious bias, the latest work that Embrace has been doing, which has been absolutely devastating to me, they presented it at the British Interpartum Care, and it's actually on their website. You can go and look at their inequalities presentation. But they've looked at those statistics from 2017. They've compared it to country of origin versus giving birth anywhere in the UK, and what the outcomes would be. And because they've had to be data that's collected in all those countries, the only things that they've been able to look into is premature birth, neonatal death, and infant death. But as a Pakistani woman, I would be less likely to have a premature birth, I would be less likely to have a neonatal death or an infant death if I went and had a baby in Pakistan, which is my country of origin, or if I had a baby anywhere else in the world, in comparison to the UK. So these statistics are real, and we need to stop making ourselves feeling better about it and making excuses, and start working towards addressing.
I think, you know, like Benash saying, it's very important that we don't see them as statistics, that we see them as people. When I see those statistics, I think of my sisters, I think of my cousins, I think of my friends. You know, we can do that thing where it's like, oh yeah, 5 times 4, oh that's big, but 3 times 4, oh that's big, yeah, but you're not seeing it as a person, you know. And this is where we can become quite far removed from what is actually happening, that these are people that are losing their lives. These are people that are having shocking experiences with maternity care, predominantly based on the color of their skin. And so how can we really call ourselves these all-rounded midwives who provide this care if those are the effects that our care is having on people? And it's just often not intentional. And I will talk about this unconscious bias thing, because I think it's, you know, a very important point. I would have to be inclined to say that unconscious bias is being used as a cop-out for certain behaviours. It is unconscious until it is conscious. So you can get away with it and you can say, well, I didn't know I was doing that. I didn't even recognise that I was doing that. Through reflection, you should say, well, actually, and through learning and through studying, well, actually, maybe I could make this difference. It is only unconscious to a degree. And then we become aware of what we're doing. And that's how we make changes. But we can't keep going on this, well, it's unconscious bias, it's doing its unconscious bias, because then it makes people feel safe. I didn't know I was doing it, so I wasn't doing it. So I didn't know that was the effect that I was having on someone's life. Well, let's make it conscious. Let's start checking in with ourselves and our own internalized unconscious biases and our own racism. And then we make a conscious effort to change it if we want to. But if you don't want to, well, then you're just racist, aren't you? There's nothing unconscious about it.
That's it. That's the difference. That's how I explain racism versus unconscious bias. It's a choice. Racism is when you know, you realize, you do nothing to address, and you continue to do what you are doing and you have been doing because it's easier for you and it doesn't impact you. Yeah. So we do need to make the change within ourselves that we want to see within the world. I'd just like to put the poll out. I know we were meant to have one earlier, but we got so busy talking that it never went out, Illiyin. So if Catherine could put that one out, that would be great. Fantastic. So if you guys just go ahead and let us know what your experiences, well, just reply to the poll. We're going to talk about some of the work we've been doing. And the work we've been doing is I have co-created and been running an amazing, and I say it's amazing because the data that's come out of it has been amazing. We've been doing questionnaires, and this data is not from the self-selected group, because we have an online version where people can book onto, and that will be sent out in the resource pack via the emails that you can book onto and do. And there is also a group that we're doing in a trust, and it's mandatory and it's MDT, and this is from only that local trust data. And actually the reality is you are not going to be culturally competent after attending one such session. You are not going to be culturally competent ever, because there's so many there's so many cultures out there that you cannot learn everything about every culture, but you can start building and start learning, and you can start being culturally safe and actually trying to give that individualized care and understand what's going on, what's happening, what biases we have, or what the provision that we provide is actually like. What's holding us back? Are we feeling safe having culturally safe conversations with the people we care for? Can we actually discuss this topic that we've just been discussing with the people we work with our families at home? Do we have those conversations? The workshop focuses on values, attitudes of individuals, how we have become the person we are, how we can check ourselves, and how the outward environment influences us and continues to influence us. And this isn't a tick box exercise. This is hard work, and it includes activities and case studies, and it's emotionally draining, and it's investing. And anyone who has been to it, someone gave us feedback to say, it feels like I've just done a 12-hour shift. I am emotionally drained, is what they said. But then I suppose that's the kind of work we need to do to start addressing these issues that we have.
Yeah.
Because everyone has them. And saying otherwise is just not good enough.
Yeah. So I run a masterclass, a monthly masterclass, as it was, as Karen kindly said, Sue said, sorry. And I'd done this masterclass because I realized there was a gap, and it was this real need for truth speaking, real home truths and getting to the nitty gritty of issues. And it's an hour and 45 minutes. It's not a long masterclass, but actually people have come out of it and said, I didn't even realize what I was doing. I never considered myself to be racist, but was I actively anti-racist? And that's how we can realize there's a big difference between not being racist and being against racism, and how we do that and how we advocate for our patients and the people that we care for. patients or otherwise, and in our families, and when we're having these conversations, because really, as midwives and birth workers, we are supposed, and student midwives, and want to be student midwives and doulas, and we want to advocate for the people that we are caring for, because that is what we are there to do. Whatever their choices are, whatever their understanding is, whatever services they need, we're there to advocate for that. But how can we do that if we are carrying these internalized biases? And so the work that I'm doing is to really start to just point them out. And an hour and 45 minutes is not nearly enough. We get to the cusp of it, and then it's like, now you need to go and think. Now you need to go and really do the work. You don't get to leave my masterclass and say, well, I've done the work now. I know that I'm great and I am safe and all the rest of it. It is a moment of realization that should lead to many moments of reflection, and should lead to change in your behaviors and in the care that you provide. And it's gradual. I'm not expecting anyone to go out and be like, oh, now everything is perfect. No, it is something that will take skill, patience, understanding. But you can see some of the feedback there and how people have felt following the masterclass. And the
sad reality is, you aren't going to walk away from either of these thinking everything is perfect. What you're going to see is something has been lifted, a lens has been lifted, it's been removed, and you're going to be picking up so much more. And living and working with that is hard. I spent so long in anger in what I was seeing, witnessing, what I had reflected on. It takes time, and you have to sit with it to learn, because at the end of the day, we are working towards addressing inequalities in health, which is one of the most shocking and inhumane things that can exist in a country where we actually are working actively to address those, and we have the resources to do that. And this is what is being advised by Marmot, which is proportionate universalism. And my example for this is my favourite advert from back in the day.
Yellow Pages.
Right. This is not for you to all go out and buy Yellow Pages, because unfortunately they no longer exist because we have Google. But we know that, in an easy world, that would be sorry, I'm doing things I shouldn't be doing. In a world where it'd be easier to make the girl bend down and come lower, actually what we're trying to do is elevate the boy so that he is at the same level as the girl. So we're putting more where it's needed to bring that level up, which is proportionate universalism. And the future is already here, because the reality is, while the NHS is working on things, I've got a job which is specifically looking at health inequalities in my maternity unit. We are actually leading the way, because there's no such job. The other jobs out there are continuity of care leads, whereas I'm looking solely at this. I'm working solely on this. I am looking how we can adapt this in my local trust. And I don't know of any other midwife that's doing this like I am. And if there is, please talk to me, because we need to get together, because what we need to do is learn from best practice and work and improve these health inequalities. This isn't about territorialism. This is about making things better for everyone, everywhere. So that's what my job is. That's my day job. Then we've got people out there doing the work. We've got people running workshops, running support groups, running training, running actual stuff that are aimed at these communities, or being activists and raising their concerns and addressing issues. And we've got student midwives. They are our future. They are our future, and they are where we need to invest. And they are already on this. They are already understanding that this is a major issue.
Yeah, I mean, we've got Alicia's doing some really amazing things, but also there's another student midwife called Chelsea who's doing really great work. And it's like, yes, that's what we need. We need that fire from the beginning. Don't become jaded. Don't be influenced. You come in correct. You come in wanting to make changes, because it is so quickly that you can get caught up, and all of a sudden it's like you just become like everyone else. You've internalized all of those biases and those age-old practices. And so it's like, come in fresh. Those student midwives, you go hard and you don't shut up. That's what you need. You've got that fire in your bellies, and just use it. I beg you to please use it, because it will be making all the difference to everyone.
And we don't give references because we've had to learn all this and work on this ourselves. So you can go and do the work because it's out there. All you have to do is Google it with lots of different acronyms and lots of different words. But if you want something to read, then here's a few examples. And again, the PowerPoint presentation will be forwarded. So that's that. I would just like to ask, what was the results of the poll? So 95% of you guys that are currently watching us have said yes to the question that was asked of if you have experienced or witnessed bias in practice. Do I need to say more?
And that 5% of you,
come to our workshop. We'll help you see the light.
We'll help you identify whether or not that's true. Yes.
Wow.
I don't know if Sue's got any other questions for us.
Oh, Benash and Illiyin. Is that correct now?
That is.
I thought that was a really good place to start, and I felt really bad because I thought I had it right. And I know that actually it's a very simple thing, asking people their names and getting it right. It is really important, and that's a good place for us to start. I could listen to you guys talking forever. I mean, it's uncomfortable because it's why haven't we sorted it? Why haven't we addressed all these biases that we have? We hold our biases, we hold our assumptions, and I think what I'm learning, it's a pathway to competence. And I think you put that very well, that you're not going to become competent after one session or one workshop, because you have to actually get working on it yourself, and it takes a lot to unpick. And I think you've set the agenda brilliantly, and thank you so much for that. I mean, I'm not sure. I think the questions haven't come through yet. And I mean, I suppose as a white midwife, I was thinking, well, when I'm meeting a black or brown woman for her care, how do I know that she's not going to have her assumptions of bias against me? And I kind of, maybe I need to feel that uncomfortableness, but how do I address it and make sure she knows that I am trying to, I think, Benash, you called it being an ally, trying to be an ally and actually trying to give her the best that I can give, and understand more about her.
Yeah, I think we often get very scared to show that we don't know. There's a real fear of not being able to answer a question. And we need to really become comfortable with being like, I'm not sure how, and you can ask people, it is really that simple of saying, what is your understanding of maternity services? Do you have any fears of the care that you're going to receive? How can I help you to ensure that you enjoy this process, but also that you understand and that you feel supported? What do you need from me? And let them tell you. I think it's as simple as that. This is a two-way thing. You're working as a team. And so you say, I've never met you before. I don't claim to be an expert in your culture or in your ethnicity and have any deeper understanding of your experiences, but tell me what you need and what you're worried about.
And I think that's literally, so if I think about my own experience and what I've done in practice is when I've gone into a labour room and I'm caring for this pregnant person, I've literally said, My name is Benash Nazmeen. I'm your midwife. I'm all yours. I am literally all yours, is how I've put it. And I've had feedback and letters written to me afterwards that have said, the minute we heard your voice and we heard you say that, we knew you were on our side. And that was the start of the conversation.
Yeah, and that kind of makes continuity even more important, doesn't it? Because if you've made that relationship, it's kind of good if you can continue with that onwards.
Not this plaster that they keep putting on everything and calling it continuity and piling things on midwives and saying, yeah, now you're this and now you've got to do this and now you've got to do this. We're talking true continuity where you can really know the people that you are caring for. And that way, you know, we can make a real difference, because if you know someone, you see changes in them. You see when they're uncomfortable, you see when they express themselves, you see when they don't know, when they're unsure, and you can make those changes that they need, instead of just, I've just met you and suddenly you're this and I don't know what you're like and blah blah blah. You know, true continuity will make a true difference.
And both the midwife and the mother, actually. Sorry, Benash.
No, it's fine. I was just going to say, with a caveat, that those practitioners have their biases checked.
Always.
Because there is culturally safe care, and if you have practitioners within a model who have not had adequate understanding training, or are actually saying, well, you know, you're more likely to have a poor outcome because of your XYZ, rather than I probably need to check my own issues as well situation, then we've got a problem.
No, that's grand. I have got some questions. People are really loving your session. We've got Lola, who says, morning ladies, managed to steal a few minutes away from homeschooling to catch the last few minutes. I'm sure you can catch up, Lola. I'm well done. I'm feeling emotionally drained from the work that lies ahead, but you've given me renewed vigor. There's a feedback. And Lauren says, Benash, was your role as specialist cultural liaison midwife a pre-existing position that you were able to step into, or was it something you had to advocate for? And thank you both for a fantastic presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the feedback. It's been brilliant. In regards to my role was initially advertised as a BAME lead midwife, and I'm not sure if anyone noticed, but I had crossed out the term BAME. BAME has its own issues, but we still have to use that because people recognize that in reports, etc. However, I have an issue with that. But BAME lead midwife and team leader for a continuity team. And when I went to my job interview, which was at a different trust, and I moved trust to come here, I said, that role is a bigger role, and I'm going to be doing two roles in one, and I cannot, not give my 100% to either of those. And if I'm being honest, inequalities is my passion and what I would like to address. And that conversation was had at the interview about how actually I wouldn't be able to do either of them effectively. On the first day that I started on my job, I was told that they agreed with me after that conversation, and that the other aspect of the job was given to someone else, and my sole job. So then I had to sit down and write my own job description, and it's evolving and it's changing all the time, because I'm like, and I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do that, and I can do everything apparently. But job, that
it doesn't surprise me.
My second response to that conversation when that finished was, well, can we change the name? Because I don't want to explain to everyone why I'm a BAME lead midwife. And I need to rather explain to people why everyone has a culture, and I'm here to build the gaps between cultures.
That's fabulous. And I said earlier I could listen to you guys all day, and I think you'll have to come again. And I want to say a huge thank you on behalf of all of the people who are listening and watching, and I'm sure they've taken on a lot. There've been a few more questions, loads of positive comments about your session, and I know Benash and Illiyin will try and answer some of those queries on the live feed if they can. But meanwhile, it's time for a quick break.